Hi, I'm Terry from Firetree Philanthropy. Earlier this year, we put together a super simple facilitator's guide on systems thinking for communities in the Philippines. And one of the requests that we got was if we could just bring together people from different backgrounds who are either trying to work in systemic ways or are exploring systems thinking in their own teams. And let's just have a really honest conversation about what they've tried, what worked, and what didn't. So, for our first conversation, it's called Schools and Systems Thinking, and we had a chance to bring together three educators that I super admire. So, there's Ilan from ISBB School in Lucena City. We have Cyril from Foundation University in Dumaguete City, and we have Cherson from Habi Education Labs. So I hope that you enjoy this first conversation about systems thinking. Bye. Maybe we just jump in. Why were you interested in incorporating or bringing systems thinking into your program or your work? If I can ask you, Ilan, to start because you're trying this with really young kids, K to 12.
So I will be honest that initially going into, as a school administrator, going into sort of redesigning or improving our school programs, our initial goal was not to incorporate systems thinking. That wasn't the direct path. Our initial vision was something else. We had this vision of not trying to take on all of the world's problems and solving all of the world's problems by ourselves, but instead sort of imagining a whole generation of youth who are trained and practiced in taking on these challenges and problems in whatever path life leads them to. So what our school in Lucena in Quezon Province did, ISBB is the name. I helped pioneer a really exciting program that had students take on the role of a change maker. So whether that means like an advocate or an NGO leader, the students were sort of given the leadership and responsibility to create social change in their communities, no matter if they're preschool, elementary, or high school. So I know it sounds like a heavy burden to the kids, but they have been loving it. So we've been doing this for almost 2 years already, and the feedback has just been really, really great. Systems thinking is a natural and I want to say essential, a mindset that you need to solve problems. And whether it's problems that are environmental or marginalized people, our goal as a school was to mentor students to solve problems in their communities. And the best way to do that is with a mindset of systems thinking, because we want our students to attack problems by going beyond short-term or band-aid solutions.
Thanks. And quick follow-up, did you call it systems thinking?
Initially, no. I feel like it's just a rational or logical way to do things or to think about things. So I feel like we were practicing it. We just didn't call it systems thinking. I think a common word might be like problem solving, or I guess when you talk about systems thinking, you mention things like short-term or long-term solutions and band-aid solutions. So those are words that we use.
How about you, Cyril?
Over the past, I think, 3 semesters, we have a subject called T. It's Technology, Environment, and Entrepreneurship. So basically, we guide students to create business ideas to address problems around them. But the main problem we had with idea generation, and I think I'd like to echo on what Ilan said, we kept on having some band-aid solutions. Those are the usual things that our students are conceptualizing. And as a teacher, it's very difficult for us to tell them right away that it's wrong. I think it's our responsibility to allow them to see things in a different perspective. And when Terry introduced systems thinking to us, I already thought that this is the solution that I think our students should have in order for them to look at problems in a different way. One semester dedicated to ideate solutions and eventually testing it would be put into waste if we just allow our students go in multiple ways. Systems thinking allows them rather to have multiple solutions in different layers, and they tend to understand why the solutions that we have right now around us are not working anymore.
Mm.
I really love when students see policies, even normal or regular community policies, why it doesn't work, because it doesn't really directly address the situation beforehand. Well, that's a primary reason why we put systems thinking into that specific program. Kasi good for us, or good for me with my team, we had the free hand to tinker and do whatever with the subject. And looking at it right now, I think at least on the level of ideation, we've systems thinking has helped our students look problems in a deeper, much detailed perspective.
I think plus one with everything that Ilan and Cyril had said. From my perspective, from our work in Habi, because when we started, we really just focused on applying human-centered design to learning problems. So anything related to whether it's a problem that a teacher has or a student has or a school has or university or any stakeholder in the learning journey. um, we were really curious about how can we apply human-centered design processes and mindsets to the solutions, and that led us to different pathways. Also, eventually, we were practicing more participatory methods of design, so doing a lot more
Mm.
co-design work, and a big part of co-design or participatory design in our process is ang tawag namin din paghihimay ng konteksto, where we really look at who are the different stakeholders and who do we need to empathize with. So to add to what Cyril mentioned about the ideation stage of human-centered design, it's also about the empathy stage, where we try to map out who are really experiencing these problems and how deep do they experience these problems. So it's about empathizing with parents, even if it's about curriculum. It's empathizing with students if it's about teacher development, and looking at how all of these different stakeholders experience the challenges. I think to echo also what Ilan said, it was quite natural for us when we were focused on doing these design thinking projects with schools and teachers. We'd always end up with asking the question, okay, we have a solution, we're trying to design it or to solve it, but when we are going to implement it, how do we ensure that it gets implemented in a way um, that gets sustained? And so
Mm.
that led us to thinking, at that time we didn't call it systems thinking, we were calling it systems strengthening. So we
Mm.
were trying to examine if we were in a problem. Let's say we're examining, let's say, STEM education in a school or in a community, and we were looking at existing systems where we can actually add or amplify, or we can contribute to the solution, so that we're not just redefining a problem or trying to disrupt, because at that time disruption was like the buzzword in innovation. I mean, in disrupt, you have to change. Innovation means change, but sometimes innovation is also quite slow. That's one thing we learned. Sometimes the slow innovation, or the ones that involve different perspectives, like I said, more participatory processes, and one that actually takes into consideration the systems in place and are more mindful of it. Doon namin na-realize na mas natatanggap yung solution, or they get more ownership over these solutions. It's not as foreign. It's not something that was downloaded to them. It was something that they co-created together, and it's something that's more aligned with their context.
Mm.
So right now, we still don't call it systems thinking. It's still within the context of what we call co-design or participatory design. But we
Mm.
do a lot of stakeholder mapping, doing some of the tools, the usual systems thinking tools like iceberg models and community mapping, asset mapping, examining different artifacts, and those stuff. And it's proven to be quite exciting for educators, because many of them, educators and education stakeholders, because many of these terms are quite invisible to them, but when you put them into perspective, oh yeah, this is a system, our school is a system, or my classroom is a system within a system, and all these other systems around it, and that's when they're like, aha, interesting.